Okay, well, in this video for 3.4, which is found on page 104 in your textbook, we are, instead of solving one-step equations with addition and subtraction, now we are solving one-step equations with multiplication and division. So, same kind of thing. If we were multiplying, then we'll divide. And if we were dividing the variable, then we will multiply. But let's look what it says. Multiplying each side of an equation by the same number produces an equivalent equation. So if A equals B, then A times C equals B times C, because A and B were equal. Same with dividing. If A equals B, then A divided by C equals B divided by C. Of course, C would not be able to be 0 there, because we can't divide by 0. So let's look at an example, make a little more sense for us. Here it says we want to solve x divided by 3 equals negative 6. And what I don't want you to do is think, well, I can just brainstorm or just kind of mental math it, and I know that has to be negative 18, because negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. Don't do that, because these get tougher and then kids don't know how to actually work them out. They just know how to do the easy ones in their head. So we have to do this step by step so that we know the process. So we look at this, we always look at the side with the variable on it. In this case, it's the left-hand side. The variable is the x. And what are we doing? We're dividing by 3. Well, I want to get rid of divide by 3 because, again, I want to isolate the variable or get it all by itself. So I was dividing by 3. We'll do the opposite of that, which would be multiply by 3. Of course, I can't just multiply one side of the equation by 3 and expect everything to continue to be equal. I have to multiply both sides of the equation by 3. When I multiply this left side by 3, the times 3 and the divided by 3, those cancel out, leaving me with just x. And on this side, I have 3 times negative 6, which is negative 18, which we knew it was going to be, but this is the process. So we were dividing by 3. Therefore, we multiply both sides of the equation by 3 to get our answer. Same kind of thing if we're looking at a multiplication problem. Here, 18 equals negative 4 times y. Now, we don't always just look at the left-hand side. There's nothing to do over here. And we're trying to get the variable by itself. So we look at the side with the variable on it. In this case, it's the right-hand side. We look, what are we doing to the variable? Oh, it looks like minus 4, so we add 4. No, that's not a minus 4. It's right up next to the variable. Remember, that means multiply. This is negative 4 times y. So how do I get rid of multiplying by negative 4? I divide by negative 4. Okay, so a common mistake on this one would be kids would try to add 4 to both sides. That will not solve this equation. That will actually make it more complicated. So this was a multiplication, so we divide. We divide by negative 4 on both sides. Now on this side, the left or the right-hand side, the side with the variable on it, we'll be left with just y. And over here we have 18 divided by negative 4. Well, different sign, so it's negative, and 18 divided by 4 is 4.5. So the solution is y equals negative 4.5. So if you were multiplying, you divide. If you were dividing, you multiply. Here are 3 to do on your own. On this one, you'll be multiplying both sides by 5 because you were dividing. Over here, it looks like, wait, there's nothing to, what are we supposed to, wait a minute. Remember, negative a means negative 1a. And we don't have the variable all by itself because we got this negative 1 attached to it. We got to multiply both sides by negative 1, or you could look at it as you were multiplying by negative 1, so you could divide both sides by negative 1. In either case, you'll get the same answer here. If you ever want to just change the sign of something, you multiply by negative 1, or you could divide by negative 1. Your choice. And over here, we look at the right-hand side here. It's negative 1.5 times n. Since we were multiplying here, we'll divide both sides by negative 1.5. So give them a shot. Give them a try. Okay, so for number 1, it was x divided by 5 equals negative 2. So we look at the variable side. We were dividing by 5. So we'll multiply both sides by 5. The divide by 5 and multiply by 5 cancel out, leaving us with just x. negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. X equals negative 10. For number 2, negative a equals negative 24. We're going to multiply by negative 1 on both sides. Again, you could have divided by negative 1. You'll get the same result. And I put the negative 1 in parentheses because of that multiplication symbol, but whatever. Negative a times negative 1 leaves me with just a. Negative 24 times negative 1, same sign, positive. 24 times 1 is 24. A equals 24. And then for number 3, 3 equals negative 1.5n. I look at the variable side. That's the right-hand side this time. I was multiplying by negative 1.5, so I divide by negative 1.5. Divide by negative 1.5. Now, sometimes students will write that all correctly, but then when they look at this, it looks to them like it's 3 minus 1.5. Remember, that's the division sign right there, that fraction bar. Well, this side will leave us with just n, and over here, a positive and a negative, so my answer is going to be negative, and 3 divided by 1.5 is 2. 3 divided by 1.5 is 2, so negative 2 equals n. For example 2, solving an equation using a reciprocal. Whenever we're solving an equation like this, where we can see, okay, here's some number here, in this case it's negative 4/5, right next to the x, we know that's a multiplication problem. But to get rid of this, because it's a fraction, what we're actually going to do is multiply both sides by its reciprocal. Remember, that means we flip this thing over. The reciprocal of negative 4/5 is negative 5/4. The reason we do that, I'll show you right down here, but remember, we do have to do that to both sides of the equation. Okay, so when we multiply by negative 5/4 on both sides, if we look at this left-hand side here with the variable on it, well, a negative times a negative is a positive, and then we'll have 5 times 4 on the top for 20, 4 times 5 on the bottom for 20, so we just have positive 20/20, which is 1. So we just have 1x, which is just x, which is what we wanted. So we multiply by the reciprocal to get rid of a fractional coefficient out here. We do have to multiply this side also by the reciprocal, so negative 5/4. Remember, this is just negative 8/1. So a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 times 8 is 40. 4 times 1 is 4. 40/4 is the same as 10. 40 divided by 4 is 10. So x equals 10. So we multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the coefficient. Okay? So give these 3 a try right there. Okay, so when you tried number 4, negative 14 equals 2/3 x. We look at the variable side. We were multiplying by 2/3. So you could say we divide by 2/3, but remember, we don't divide by fractions. We actually multiply by the reciprocal. Or you can just remember, we just multiply by the reciprocal. So you could skip that little thought process. I'm going to write this out again horizontally like this. So remember, it's the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2. So 3/2 times, and instead of negative 14, I'm just going to write it negative 14/1, because it's easier for me to do that multiplication that way. And then we have 2/3 x, and we're multiplying by 3/2. Remember, that's an x and not a multiplication symbol. These are all multiply. Okay, so when we're simplifying over here, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 14 7 times. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. Or remember, a positive times a negative is a negative. Over here, 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 3 once, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 2 once, and I'm left with just x, which is what I wanted because we were isolating the variable. So x equals negative 21. On this problem here, what's the reciprocal of negative 8/5? Negative 5/8, of course. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 8 negative 5 over 8. Then times a negative 8 over 5b equals 5 times, and I'll put that over 1 again, times negative 5 over 8. So here, these will cancel out. That's why we did it. We're left with just b. That's what we wanted to do, isolate the variable. And over here, there's no simplification we can do, but I do have a positive times a negative, so it's a negative answer. 5 times 5 is 25 for my numerator, and 1 times 8 is 8 for my denominator. b equals negative 25 over 8. If you wanted to turn that into a mixed number, 8 goes into 25 3 times with 1 left over, so negative 3 and 1/8. But I would have just left it negative 25 over 8. Last one, we've got 3/8 h equals negative 9. So we multiply by the reciprocal, which is 8 over 3. So I have 8 over 3 times 3 over 8h. These will all cancel out. That's why we did it. Negative 9, which is negative 9 over 1, times the reciprocal again is 8 over 3. Make sure you go back and make sure you're multiplying by the reciprocal. Sometimes even I start to write down the wrong thing, and I start to write down 3 over 8 on this side, and of course that'll give us the wrong answer. H on this side, because those canceled out, leaving us with just the variable. That's what we were doing, isolating the variable. Negative times a positive gives me a negative, and I can do some simplifying here. 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 9 3 times. So I have 3 times 8 on the top, which is 24, and just 1 times 1 on the bottom, which is 1. So that leaves it h equals negative 24. Now I'll go try some of these problems.